Hi, we're going to give you a basic overview of the PPS-1000. We'll start with the screen. Standard start button and reset button down here. Standard stop button up over here. E-stop up here. We'll go through all the items on the screen. This is our, what I call a jog screen or ready screen. On this screen we have a manual dispense. That will dispense one product to the cut position. Manual cut will just cycle the knife through to cut the product. Jog in feed will jog the material through the machine. That will be in the forward direction. Jog reverse will jog the machine in the reverse direction. Product count is pretty self-explanatory. It counts the product. Jog out feed on this particular machine, you do not have a jog an out feed, so that button won't do much of anything. Jog all, if you had an out feed, it would jog the in feed and the out feed at the same time. Up in the top right hand corner here is a help button. If you press that button, it'll bring you to a screen that has a short description of all the buttons that I just explained to you on it. And that's true for any screen on the HMI. Down here is also a short description and our address and website and email address if you need that information. We'll go to the main menu screen now. On this screen we can look at all the inputs and see which ones are active and which ones aren't. It's just a display screen to indicate which inputs are on. Below that is an output screen. Does the same thing. It displays what outputs are active on the machine. Enter password. If you press that button, it'll bring up a keypad. The password to get into the setup screens is 0000, and that'll bring up the setup button. If you want to log out from that password, which will time out, you can press log out and it'll take you out of there. And we also have a change password button here. We'll now go into the setup screens. These will become more clear when we go and look at the machine itself as to what all these do, but I'll try to give you a quick description of each button here. And again, if you hit the help button, it'll bring you up to the help screen that'll show you which each one of these buttons does. Product detect timer. Everything on this machine is based on time, not distance. And all these times that are on these setup screens are in milliseconds. So product detect timer, when we go to index the product into the machine, this time is how long we ignore the product eye. So if you have a piece of product that's for the first 40 milliseconds of it moving, it's going to ignore it. After that 40 milliseconds, it's looking for the hole in the desiccant, or a print registration mark if you were running with print registration, or a bulge if you were looking for a bulge. We ignore any inputs from those devices with this value. Right now it's set to 1 millisecond. So if it sees just a little flicker under 1 millisecond, it won't indicate that it's time to stop. Product settle time is the time that we wait before we fire the cut. Just lets everything, the web settle down before we fire the knife. So the longer that is, the longer it'll sit there before the knife fires. Product out delay is if we don't see a product for a certain amount of time, it will stop the machine on a product out fault. Knife on time is how long the solenoid is active to fire the air cylinder that pushes the knife down. The knife off time is after we release the input or the output for this cylinder or the knife before we do the next item in the sequence of events here. So we're delaying before we index again, essentially, is what happens there. Bottle settle time is when the the bottle eye sees the bottle or the bottle proc sees the bottle, how long we sit there before we tell it to fire. Upstream eye delay is you're going to get some flicker on the upstream eye as bottles go by. In other words, it'll kind of see in between them. We don't want to delay the machine while that's happening, so we put in a delay or a time period in there that says don't shut the machine down because we don't see bottles unless it's over that particular time. The escapement on delay and the escapement timer, you don't have an escapement on this machine, so those are irrelevant for you. We'll go on to the next screen. And any of these help screens, you can go back to the previous screen and then to the next screen. The done button's going to jump you right out to the jog screen. Cut count is essentially how many products you want in each bottle. So right now we have it set at 1. If you wanted 2 in there, you could set it to 2, and it will dispense 2 per bottle. Skip cut on and off is, say we had a cut count of 2 and we wanted them connected together. In other words, not 2 individual products in a bottle, but 2 individual products connected together in a bottle. When you hit skip cut on, that's what would happen. Move to drop is a function if you have an outfeed where it dispenses the product right to the end of the outfeed. We don't have an outfeed on this particular machine, so that's not in use. We can switch between bulge trigger and registration trigger. Again, this machine does not have a bulge trigger on it, so we're going to run it in registration trigger all the time. Top 2 buttons here are essentially for testing. When I'm setting up the machine for a new product, I'll run it offline, and I want to cycle the machine through. So if I hit this button to internal dispense trigger, it'll use this timer to dispense it. So right now, every 333 milliseconds, it will give it a dispense trigger. If you're trying to set it up, it's nice to take the machine off the bottle line and see how everything else is working. When you're in production, that'll be in external trigger mode. External control, the cable coming out of the bottom of the cabinet that we provide is designed to be hooked to another machine that would say to our piece of equipment, we want you to run. So there's an enable contact that you would hook the cable to do that, and you'll see that on the electrical diagram. So right now that's off. If it's on, I need the input from the other machine to tell the dispenser to run. Again, you do not have an escapement, so we're going to run it in escapement disabled. This button would disable the knife. Very rarely would you not want to run without the knife. In your case, you'll run with the knife on all the time. Inhibit count is an item that when we run this machine in a dispenser mode and we want to skip like the first product, you put in a value there. You'll run that at 0. Power feed is the unwind that pulls the material off the rolls. You'll see that in a minute as I show you how to thread the machine. So pretty much all the time you guys will want to run that with that on. Product drop fault is our verification that a product is dropped. So we want to run that all the time. Obviously you guys are running in a bottle line, so we're going to run the machine all the time with the bottle line enabled. The other one's a conveyor. We dispense like wet maps into conveyors sometimes, and that's what that option's there for. The outfeed is disabled on this. You don't have an outfeed, so that'll be in that state at all times. This screen is basically servo speeds. This is something that you'll get into to change cut positions. By changing the in-feed speed, the in-feed decel, I can move the cut position up and down a little bit. So you can adjust those values. If you're cutting a little too far, you slow down the motor a little bit, or slow down or increase the decel. The XL you can adjust if it's accelerating too quickly, bouncing the web coming in. Sometimes I'll slow that down. Jog speed is how fast it jogs in the jog modes. Next screen is the same items except for the outfeed. Again, you guys do not have an outfeed on your machine, so these are buttons you don't need. I'm going to put the machine in internal trigger mode just so I can start it up, and you can see the screen, what it does when you hit start. This is the running screen. It'll display products per minute as it's running. It's a moving average. So it kind of will take a moving average, how fast your bottles are going by, and tell you how fast you're running. These two items over here, cut count and inhibit count, we set those up in the setup screens. Those are essentially display items. And product count is just a running count of how many products it's dispensed. And there's a reset button for that down here. We can also jump over to the setup screens if the setup screen timer has not run out.